Good morning, Cookout Tray. I'm here on video at 9-something a.m. to give you the
Midseason Report.
Midseason Report. Midseason Report.
Number 12, Kings cranking it.
We'll start from the bottom here with Kings cranking it, who started off at 0-5, and then he's won 3 of his last 4. Did you know that?
Yes.
And what do you think about that team name? It's kind of weird, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe a little inappropriate, even?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, too. Of course, he is on the list in terms of the fees. I'll make that point known to all who I go through. But
Cookout Tray.
Cookout Tray. So we'll see how the rest of his season fares. He's in that bottom lump, including the Wet Blankets, aka Wet Bandits, at 3-6, as well as the Bleeding Green team as well. Let's take it to the Bleeding Green team. Next.
Number 11, Bleeding Green.
Bleeding Green and Kathy Kerner. Do you know Kathy? No? Okay. Well, you met her before. Anyway, Bleeding Green started off with a abysmal 1-5 record, but in the last 2 out of the last 3 weeks, including taking down the likes of Chad's champion team in a huge upset, as well as the Fantasy Buttholes as well, took them both out, and now sets her sights on Kings cranking it in what is sort of the toilet bowl. Maybe.
And you never want to go into the Joker's jail.
You never want to go to the Joker's jail, and that's what this matchup is all about. The loser to the Joker's jail. Right, my man?
Yeah, because I was just wearing my Batman costume.
We'll see what she can do down the stretch against Tootsie Sproles and the 5-time champion, playing spoiler, or even the Nightdale Wolfpack. But at 3-6, she's our number 11 team. Let's move on.
Yeah, but we never know what we're doing. Number 10, Tootsie Sproles.
And Tootsie Sproles, who just got a huge upset victory last weekend against Chad's championship team.
Yeah.
Who can't get up for the small game, but the big games he does well. But he was on a 4-game losing streak, and that's what got him off the schneid, as they say. He'll get Leonard Fournette back this week, and is still 2 games out from the divisional.
Yeah.
Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah,
So we'll
Star
see.
Wars Manger.
His best players has to have been Melvin Gordon, with an injury-prone team that he did early on in the season. Next, let's move on to number
9, Wet Bandit. Hello.
All right, Stormtrooper, what do you think about these Wet Bandits?
They're with guns.
They're with guns, maybe very close to their own temples. I'm not sure, because they had 5 losses in a row, put together 2 wins against Bleeding Green and Night Moves, and now in a big gap, a big hole after Thursday night to the Honey Pattons. On life support here, they could miss out on their first playoffs in quite some time, I think. But here they are. They're not much to look at. They're number 9, so let's just move on to number 8.
Number 8, Honey Pattons. Stormtrooper Day!
Mr. Redskin himself, Honey Pattons, a.k.a. Harry Potter's, a.k.a. Mr. Dan Snyder Jr. He's lost 3 of 4, including most recently to Kings cranking it. Not a proud day, where he only put up 103 points. But he's in a late season push here, right in the middle of the pack, trying to really overcome all odds at 4-5, only a game out of a playoff spot, with the number 6 position at 5-4. We'll see what he can put together. He's already got 40 points from McCaffrey, one of his greatest draft accomplishments. And still, the jury's still out there on the James Conner for Adrian Peterson trade. So I think the jury's actually in. I think Conner did better. But anyway, we'll see how he fares. He's looking to make the playoffs, I believe, for the first time ever in 3 seasons. Let's move on.
Number 7, Bayside Tigers.
She's won 4 out of her last 5 and has the longest winning streak in the league currently at 3 games, 3 in a row, including her Super Bowl last week, taking down Loins of an Eagle. The Bayside Tigers are looking to actually make the playoffs this year and be a disruption, to be very much in the hunt. What do you think, London, about the Bayside Tigers? Do you think they'll make the playoffs?
Yes.
You do. Do you know whose team that is? It's Mom's team.
With shiny red shoes.
With shiny red shoes, they'll be there because there's no place like home for the playoffs. Next up.
Number 6, Nightdale Wolfpack.
Yep. The skepticism is real on the Nightdale Wolfpack, who've lost 3 straight after starting out 5-1. And it looks like, though, this week they could get a win after an underperforming Fantasy Buttholes team only put up 40 between 4 players, including his quarterback, Cameron Newton. So maybe it's time for a little break for the Nightdale Wolfpack to get off that losing streak and secure that division. They already have a 2-game lead, and so that 4 spot is pretty much his. Number 6 in the rankings, though, it looks like he will be playing come wintertime in the playoffs, as always. Let's move on.
Number 5, Fantasy Buttholes.
And Fantasy Butthole's living up to his name with a loss last week to Bleeding Green. Just when expectations are high, when he's supposed to perform and really push it over the edge, especially trying to chase down Chad's championship team, he couldn't get the victory that would pull him even against Bleeding Green and would have been his 4th straight win. He's a formidable opponent. He's got Mr. James Conner on his team, and he's really doing well. It looks like if he can just catch Chad's championship team in some way, he could try to take over that division lead. But he's sitting pretty for a playoff position either way at 5-4, with a lot of teams behind him. So I would assume, as per every year, Daniel will make the playoffs and probably disappoint sometime later on. We'll see what happens in the second half.
Number 9, Loins of the Eagle.
Perched like an eagle. Loins of an Eagle, they are quite the scheduling wonder. In their 4 losses, the team beating them has scored at least 160 points, and 3 of them in the 170s. While his 5 wins, no one scored over 124 points, apart from myself, the Wet Bandits, in a win that was back in week 4. But he's beaten teams that scored 101, 91, 124, 105, yet lost when those teams had put up 170. So who knows what to expect with this team? Who knows if they'll stick around for the playoff push, but it certainly seems like he's in good position at number 4.
Number 3, Night Moves.
The Night Moves is a team on life support, clinging on to dear life for the division lead, losing 3 of his last 5, including 1 to the Wet Bandits. The one loss that he can actually hang his hat on. A formidable opponent for sure. He'll be in the playoffs, no doubt, but where he'll be seated is unknown currently at this time. His only 3 losses were those 3 in his last 5 when he started off 4 in a row, averaging pretty close to 140, 150 points, if not higher. We'll see what shakes out in the division. If Loins of an Eagle can catch him in the very formidable Fang division, we'll see what happens.
Number 2, Chad's champion team. A-A-A-K.
Chad's championship team is reeling. Lost 3 of his last 4 in order to be now only a game ahead of the Fantasy Buttholes here in his last 2. Losing to Bleeding Green and Tootsie Sproles in 2 of his last 3. And, of course, just a bit outside, 18 points behind that one matchup of the game of the week back in Week 6 against the 5-time champion. He will most certainly be in the playoffs with the team that he has, Patrick Mahomes and Todd Gurley III, and a guy that scores a ton of points here. Win or lose, I don't think he's ever scored below 139.86 points that I'm looking at right here in my notes. So I think he's the odds-on favorite to win based on his squad personally, but we'll see. He's got to win and step up in big games. We'll see if that's going to happen.
Number 1, 5-time champion.
Also losing 2 out of his last 3, the man at the top currently, 5-time champion, has lost to both Night Moves and Loins of an Eagle in consecutive weekends prior to bouncing back last week against the Nightdale Wolfpack. You know, I feel about as excited as London is, knowing that this team is currently in the number 1 position. You know, he boasts a squad that includes probably the best fantasy wide receiver this year, hands down, and Adam Thielen. And, of course, having Ezekiel Elliott helps things as well. Not to mention waiver wire pickups of Tevin Coleman and whoever else is good this week, because the man lives on the waiver wire. Pretty sure that's what he does, is on a computer at 3 a.m. on Tuesdays and Wednesdays performing transactions. So we'll see. As always, I'm sure he'll be in the playoffs. I'm sure he will make some improbable victory by 0.3 points or some other way against someone. But will he be a 6-time champion? That is the question, leaving it up to the 11 of us others. And we'll see. As Aubrey would say, only time will tell. Until next time, Cookout Tray, if you haven't paid, pay me some Venmo. $40. Let's pay money. Termer already paid, so I can't say that catchphrase. The game of the week this week has to be the matchup between Loins of an Eagle and Chad's championship team. There's just too much at stake between those two teams in the playoff push. So that will answer your question, Mike. Good luck to everyone, and Godspeed.